Let me ask you about the incident you say you weren't involved in, but you have 2 females and you have 3 males. And one of the females says that while somebody was raping somebody inside the car, a man and a woman, the 2 outside the car, one of them held her legs apart, and then they switched places. Now that's all 3 people do according to the 2 female. All 3 males according to the female. That didn't happen that way, huh?
No, sir.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a man who was just 15 years old when he and 2 other boys did this to 2 little girls. This happened in 1970. Now he has his first chance of parole. Let's see what happens.
You are a first-class offender. You were sentenced to life in prison for the charge of first-degree rape. Back in 1970, you were sentenced. Is that information correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Here are my questions. Okay, Mr. Smith. What was going on in your life at that time? I mean, what would make you do such a thing?
I was a little young, wild juvenile. I didn't actually commit the crime. Jefferson Parish had several records stating that the victims has testified that and give the statement that my older and bigger Smith accomplice was on the charge with me, had actually did that, and they had made a statement to the coroner and the district attorney in Jefferson Parish at that time that the bigger boy, Donald Smith, had raped them, not me. It was 3 of us together, sir. I was a wild young juvenile just out the juvenile home. You know,
So what did
I
you do?
off all kind of stuff.
Just there or what?
Sir?
Did you witness the rape? Were you there?
Yes, sir, I was there.
Okay. And then how did this occur? And how did y'all come in contact with these 2 girls?
They were kidnapped from armed robbery. They robbed a place. I was there during the participation of the robbery.
Okay, so you did.
They decided to take these people off the telephone.
Okay. Being there when a crime is committed is also like committing the crime yourself. Did you do anything?
I know that's a conspiracy before, after the fact, or something, the way they say it.
Right. Did you try to stop the crime? Did you call any law?
No, sir.
All right. And you're 70 years old, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been in prison on this charge?
At the time. 54 years.
Okay.
I guess I'll be 54. I got off the street 54 years, January 28.
Okay. And how old were you when this crime occurred?
15 years old. 15.
15 years old. And so how long have you been in Angola?
Times I went to Satellite in 76. I went to Phelps, we called it Quincy at that time. I had done 6, almost 7 years when I went for there. Then I went to Court Order a couple of times, one time about 9 months, in around 1979. All the rest of the time I was here, sir.
Okay. You told me you had just got out of the juvenile. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In New Orleans, called the Mildred Boys Home at that time.
Okay. And how long did you stay in there?
4 months.
Okay. And why were you there?
Just being bad, not going to school, truancy, all this kind of stuff. So my aunt that was raising me at that time had me put in the juvenile things for not going to school.
Okay. I see you have a residence plan in Texas. Who are you going to live with down there, and where are you going to work?
I was going to do that when I get down there. If I got it approved, I had people, relatives down there in Texas were going to try to get me a job situation. But they had told me that this didn't get approved. That somebody was misinformed and give me the information back. They told me I couldn't go to Texas. I had to stay
Okay,
in the
Warden,
week.
y'all get something back on contact with regard to, compact with regard to Texas?
Yes, sir, I turned in there.
Okay, no, let the warden speak.
Hang on one second, Mr. Freeman, we're looking it up right quick.
Okay.
There would be a copy of the.
Yeah, I was being
And we
looking
didn't
at-
see any.
I didn't see anything and I'm getting looking right here and I don't have anything in it.
You know,
To the best
Don't
of our
see it.
knowledge right now, looking at his record, looking in the computer, we do not.
okay, thank you, sir. It should be in the computer, right, if it was filed, ladies? Okay. Okay, Mr. Smith, I don't know where things got turned around, but you compacted text that says we showing that it's never been submitted. Where would
All
you
right.
stay and live around here if you got out?
And in one of the halfway houses for the facility, I go to Alexandria, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, any facility they have open. San Francisville. I
Okay.
heard several.
Just
Wow.
real hard to
Doesn't matter.
get,
I
sex
go to
offender.
any one of them.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you have to take the sex offender classes? I saw you took 1 and 2. Did you
Yes,
take
sir.
them
I
all?
took all of them.
Okay, good, good. I just wanted
All
to make
four,
sure.
all 4 phases of it, sir.
Okay, and you took anger management. You take any other classes while you were there?
I took the whole 100-hour program in
Okay.
2012.
I see you took victim awareness. You took anything else? Anger management?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
Took 2 phases of that. Got all my certificates right here.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is what really concerns me. You have 110 write-ups. Now, you've been there a long time, so, 54 years, 110 write-ups. But the bad part about it is if you got, 2 in 2022, about a year and a half ago. You got 1 for a 19 self-mutilation. What were you doing? How were you hurting yourself?
I was trying to go to the hospital at the time, and the sick call man didn't want to let me go or something there, and I feel as though if I cut myself with the razor, I could get over there to the emergency room and see somebody.
And what
I know I
about,
went at it the wrong way, but
all right,
that's where
and
my
what
mind
about, August 17th, in 22, you got arrested for a 3 and a 5, defiance and an aggravated disobedience. What was that about?
trying to see what that was about. 22?
22, August 19th of 22.
All right. That's what it was. I was over there in A block, and they say they was coming around to paint or do something with the lights. My pressure got up high out there on the yard. We was out in the hot sun, and I asked to see the emergency team people, and they didn't do it. So they told me I had to stay out there in the hot sun. I told them I couldn't stay out there. I was having dizzy. My pressure was going up. I have a serious problem with high blood pressure. My heart and stuff be acting up when I get in severe heat like that. I wasn't used to being out on that yard. No, I don't even come outside on the yard. So they wouldn't call nobody for me at that time. And they wind up put me in route me up, put me in the administrative service there. I had to go to court for that.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions. Any of y'all have asked any questions? Right.
Let me ask you about the incident you say you weren't involved in, but you have 2 females and you have 3 males. And one of the females says that while somebody was raping somebody inside the car, a man and a woman, the 2 outside the car, one of them held her legs apart while the other raped her, and then they switched places. Now that's all 3 people doing a rape according to the 2 females. all three males doing rape according to the female. That didn't happen that way, huh?
No, sir. I could, you probably got to get the archives of Jefferson Parish back there. Got them had the original statements. And a lawyer named Lionel Collins went to be a judge later on, was trying to get me off on that. The other boy went to the juvenile home. This older girl was named Cynthia Kaiser, according to their records down there in Jefferson Parish. Said she was the only one that was raped by the older, bigger boy. The other girl name was Lorraine Fagan, and they had her down as a virgin. Nobody was never raped this girl. And she had her statements in there also. They was trying to get us cut loose on. And it could be proven if somebody get down there to Jefferson Parish. That other girl was a virgin. Name was Lorraine Fagan. I never forget her name. She was 15. The one named Cynthia Kaiser said the bigger boy, was by record name was Donald Smith. Said that was I don't know about nobody holding anybody down.
You didn't know anything about that, huh?
Oh, sir.
And so- So
I
just,
know that was never,
were
huh?
you there? Were you there?
I was there, but not on this, where you got that stuff what you reading now. I was there when this actual crime took place.
You were present when the crime took place.
Yes, sir, but not that part there. The first time I'm hearing something like that. Somebody
And
was held down.
You're
And two
saying
girls were raped.
You're saying just one of the women was raped?
Yeah, one of the girls were raped. The older girl was named Cynthia Kaiser. That's down there in Jefferson Parish. That's in their records. Supposed to be in their archive.
But the other,
Statements of hers were that this older, bigger boy raped her. The other two little ones didn't do anything. They said the victim statement, they had her back all in the courthouse and everything. That the bigger boy was bullying the two little ones and had them doing what they want them to stand by and do different things, giving them the orders. That's the kind of statements they had on them.
and so listen to what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Listen. You're saying only one girl was raped. Is that what you're saying?
That's what they had on their records originally, sir.
Care what they got in the record. You tell me. How many girls were raped?
It was two girls. One was 15, one was 16.
How many girls were raped?
According to her statement, the one girl name was
You
Cynthia. Said she was
Listen to
raped, sir.
listen to me. You're not answering my question. You were there. You witnessed it. How many girls were raped?
Far as I know, one, Chief. Sir. One girl.
Far as you know, one. Well, you were there.
I was outside the car while the bigger boy, the oldest one, was in the car with this other girl. This one was sitting out here on the ground. Ain't nobody touched her. Nobody. Her name was Lorraine Fagan.
Did you ever get in the car with Lorraine?
The lead. When all us left, I got back in the car.
Okay, I don't have any other questions because they turned into arguments because they didn't what the reports show. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Do you have any questions? Okay, Mr. Blue has no questions. Okay, so now we will go to there's that's the only person here is Mr. Rainbow. Okay, well, let me put in the record the comments for the record. The judge was Judge Sarkaria. She's no longer presiding, but the presiding judge is opposed. that is the new judge, Frank Zachariah. Okay, and he took Chris Cox's place.
Excuse me, that's just the opposite. Judge DeCarry was the
Cox
sentencing
took
judge.
his place.
Judge Cox is the current judge.
Cox. Okay, no comment from the district attorney, but Mr. Myers is here. Opposed is Sheriff Pinto. No one's here to speak on your behalf. And we'll get to your statement afterwards. Okay, Mr. Myers, what do you have to say?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Randy Meyer, Assistant DA, Jefferson Parish. So there was a petition for habeas corpus that was filed in this case, and opinions went to the Louisiana Supreme Court. And just scanning through that opinion, based on what Mr. Smith was saying, that he didn't commit this offense. One statement in this opinion talks about Mr. Smith admitted he had confessed to the crime. The district attorney allowed the defense counsel to see the entire file, and they concluded that the state had a very strong case against Mr. Smith, which resulted in his guilty plea to the 2 counts of aggravated rape. I spoke with one of the victims last week, and Ms. Kaiser, Cynthia Kaiser, Ms. Fagan is deceased. She remains very traumatized. She stated to the victim coordinator that I feel like the state should just do what they think is best. In my speaking with her, spoke with her at length and her husband at length about the case, and they agreed with my position that we are strongly opposed to his request for parole. Now, if we look at the facts as I see them in the reports, it's a little bit different than what Mr. Smith is contending. The record shows that he got out the car with another man, raped the now deceased victim outside the vehicle, while the other defendant assisted by holding her legs open, and then they swapped. Then Mr. Smith went in the vehicle and raped the lady in the back seat. She identified and identified Mr. Smith as the culprit. Now, how did this offense occur? Mr. Smith and 2 other guys stole a rifle somewhere. Then they stole a car. Then they took the stolen car and a couple of guns, and they saw these 2 young girls on a telephone, walked up with the guns, abducted them, took them in the car from Orleans Parish to Jefferson Parish, where they were raped, and then fortunately subsequently let go. So what has he been doing since he's been incarcerated? Well, he's had 110 disciplinary reports, 15 reports since 2016, 6 reports in 2021 and 2022. So clearly he is not learning how to deal with the prison system. Typically, after so many years incarcerated, their write-ups seem to, you may get a lot of them in the early years, but you don't get a whole lot in the later years. He continues to get plenty of disciplinary reports. Very concerning to me is 2021, he had a sex offense. 1981, he also had a sex offense. So he's had 2 sex offenses while he's been incarcerated. Progress report notes that he has a fair prison record, and his programming has been limited. The program that he has taken essentially is 100 hours. He took a cage of rage, anger management. He did have the sex offender treatment, which is good, and he obtained his GED. Very few programs dealing with rehabilitation and getting I guess some with rehabilitation, but to help him when if he would ever get out, to have an opportunity to earn a living. This was a violent crime committed by 3 guys against 2 young girls. My opinion is he needs to remain in prison for the entirety of his sentence. We're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Okay, last but not least, Warden Falco, do you have anything to say?
No, sir, Mr. Freeman, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is the panel ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay, since it was my case, I'm gonna vote first. Mr. Smith, I'm not gonna lie to you, when I read it and all, and I saw how long you had been in and you're taking your sex offender classes, I came here today to vote for you to get out. But then I learned you don't have a residence plan that's approved. It's hard to get an approved sex offender plan. Plus you just take no responsibility. Being there is enough. I mean, you took these girls with 2 rifles, you took something from them that could never be given back to them, as they were both very young ladies at the time. And I think you need a psych evaluation. You're cutting yourself and you're doing things of that nature. So Warden, if you could try to get him that psych evaluation, but my vote today is to deny with all the reasons stated.
I vote to deny. Same reasons, continued discipline problems, failure to admit your involvement and your attitude.
I concur with my colleagues, my votes.
Okay, Mr. Smith, that is the vote today. The vote is to deny. We will be closing out at Louisiana State Police at 11:38. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, there's a new sheriff in town, and we've seen him time and time again hold them to the fire. I mean, he was making them state the facts. And it was interesting just watching Adam kind of try to avoid the question. And really, and Mr. Freeman stated it, it's if he had gone in there and just admitted what he had done and had a residency plan, they would have paroled him. It's possible they might have even paroled him if he had just had a residency plan. The problem is that it's a pretty much evident that you parole him to nowhere. What's going to happen? I mean, the guy, he's institutionalized. He's been locked up since he's been a teenager, since 1970 in Angola. Just try to imagine that. And it's easy to forget these were children doing it to children. He was 16, the girls were 15 and 16. They steal a gun, they steal a car, they grab these little girls. As Mr. Freeman, they took something away from them that they'll never get back. We know what they were alluding to. He alluded to it, Adam. He said, "Oh, well, I don't know why he used the word corner. Was it a misspeak, or did they use the corner back then? Because no one was killed." But he said, "Well, she was a virgin still, so we didn't do anything." And the sheriff was just trying to hold him to, what was interesting is the way that he didn't just straight up say, "No, I didn't do it." He was kind of like bouncing around the question. And, frankly, it's hard to believe him. Now, there are certain things in this case that we'll go through. They don't go into the details in this appeal, but it's what Randy Meyer, the ADA who shows up to all of its cases, reference to. And there are some things in here that I would probably argue a good attorney could get this man out, all things considered. And one of it is that there are no transcripts of the court of his plea deal, because the court reporter died soon after, and for some reason, I don't know why that's an excuse, he didn't take in court transcripts. So in a separate grand jury indictment returned March 20, 1970, Adam was charged, and on January 26, 1970, of aggravated sexual assault of 2 young girls. Because of his indigency, counsel was appointed to represent the defendant. He withdrew his personal reasons. It was necessary to replace the original appointee, and a second attorney was appointed. So they don't know, but they, okay. Minutes of the trial disclosed that on October 8, 1970, while represented by counsel, the defendant withdrew his former plea of not guilty. So he initially had a not guilty plea, but that's normal, and entered a plea of guilty without capital punishment. So they were threatening capital punishment, which, which I think, is quite a common tactic where you're going to capital punish, so just take life. Now, having waived delays, the defendant, he waived delays and everything. And this does feel like, as a child, that he was just that he just took a plea deal. I'm saying there are ways that, so let's just see. Was sentenced to, and so he waived the delays. Defendant was sentenced to imprisonment for life on each charge. The sentences to run concurrently. Despite a thorough search by the sentencing judge, no transcript of the colloquy, I know I didn't pronounce that correctly, at the plea can be found. Because the court reporter died sometime after sentencing, apparently no transcript was ever prepared. I just wonder if on even this fact that some type of appeal could be won. Thereafter, on January 4th, 1973, the defendant filed a petition for habeas corpus alleging ineffective counsel and that he was not informed of the rights he waived by entering a guilty pleas. And particularly, he alleged he was not advised that a guilty plea without capital punishment carried a mandatory life sentence. And I believe that. I mean, as a little child, as a child in his situation, I believe that he probably had no idea what was going on. At a hearing held on May 11, 1973, and continued to May 1974, the defendant was represented by a third lawyer appointed to represent him. The testimony disclosed that the defendant was 16 years old at the time of the guilty plea. Donald Smith, defendant's accomplice in the crime, was separately charged, also pled guilty without capital punishment to charges. The pleas of the defendant and Donald Smith were entered at the same time with the defendant. The aunt and Donald's father were present. Each was represented by separate counsel. Donald testified that their attorneys told him that the plea bargain involved attempted aggravated sexual assault and a sentence of 20 years had been unsuccessful. So the plea bargain was unsuccessful, but they could bargain for a plea guilty without capital punishment and a life sentence. So he said, we tried to do the plea bargain for 20 years. They're not taking it. So you're the death penalty or life. And it's hard to see. I mean, it's kind of a bluff. I don't know. Would Louisiana have given a 16-year-old the ultimate punishment? They were told, sentenced them the ultimate in 1970, I guess. I don't know. Probably, right? They were told unless they pled guilty without capital punishment, they would be exposed to the death penalty. Donald also said the sentencing judge advised him of his right to trial by jury. He admitted he had confessed, but denied that his lawyer or parents were present at the time. Otherwise, Donald testified that he was not advised of his rights. He did not realize he would receive a life sentence and entered a guilty plea of fear of the death penalty. Defendant Adam Smith also testified at the joint hearing that there were separate applications for the defendant on Donald for habeas corpus had been consolidated. He testified that his appointed counsel advised that the state had a very good case against him and that he was aware that he was to receive a life sentence, a fact he later denied, but was compelled to accept the sentence for fear of the death penalty. He also said his plea was involuntary and that he was not advised of his consequences of his plea. So it basically just goes on, and I'll put the link in the description, and thank you, Richard, for providing it. But it's kind of like back and forth of whether or not he actually confessed, whether his confess was authentic, whether he was advised of his rights, whether he understood his rights, whether he had his guardians in the room when he was told his rights and confessed. And that's kind of what the plea is about. There are those that might say, hey, I believe him. He was a young child. He actually didn't do the assault. But then again, you have Randy the DA, and thankfully we have Randy the DA show up because he's saying, "Oh no, there's other information that says I'm innocent." But Randy the DA shows up, and he doesn't really have any more insight than we have, and all he was able to reference was his confession, which they say was improperly documented here, that he was alone when he confessed, that he didn't understand his rights. So Randy really didn't come in with any additional facts, except that he spoke to the victim that's still alive, and that was important. The survivor that was still alive, and she hasn't changed her story, and I think that's kind of all that matters in this case, frankly. And thankfully, the DA is there. But notwithstanding, even if they had nothing to do, they couldn't parole him. He has nowhere to go. But if I had to guess whether he did the crime or not, I mean, it's hard to believe that he didn't, and the parole hearing didn't lend him any credence, in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and with that, I'll let you go.